Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radha. Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jai Shripad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Sata Sriyesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय, श्री श्री राधा गिरिधारी भगवान की जय, श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा मैया की जय, श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Gurudev. Hare Krishna. Continue to read from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Reading from chapter A Threat Against ISKCON. For those of you who've got the books, it's page 867. The devotees began to understand how the offenses of minimizing Srila Prabhupada's position were products of Mayavad philosophy. Excuse me. For the Mayavadi, to increase devotion to the Guru is unnecessary. If individual relationships are all ultimately illusion, why increase the illusion? If the master-servant relationship is ultimately illusion, then the less the disciple sees the Guru as master and himself as servant, the more he is advancing. The Mayavadi philosophy was a subtle and insidious poison. At least Prabhupada had been spared the pain of being personally present in New Vrindavan to witness the Mayavad rantings of certain of his disciples and the appalling display of ignorance of most of the others. He had a small entourage and was on his way to preach in India. While here in Tokyo, he would try to obtain many Back to Godhead magazines and Krishna books to take with him. Prabhupada observed Janmashtami at his apartment by having disciples read aloud to him from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, throughout the day. If they kept reading, he said, they might be able to finish the book in one day. The devotees had decorated Prabhupada's rooms with leaves and flowers strung from the ceiling and along the walls. And Prabhupada sat on a thin mattress behind his low desk, hearing the pastimes of Krishna. At 9 p.m., after fasting all day, the devotees were still reading to him when he asked if they would be able to finish the book by midnight. The devotees replied that they would not. Then you stop, and I will read. Prabhupada opened a Sanskrit volume of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and for the next 2 hours chanted the Sanskrit verses. You cannot understand the Sanskrit, he said, but I know you can feel. The verses are so potent that just by hearing, one can be purified. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam Yasmin Paraham Syam Ekam Amalam Jnanam Param Giyate Tatra Jnana Viraga Bhakti Sahitam Naishkarmyamavishkritam Tat Shrinvan Supathan Vicharana Paro Bhaktya Vimuchye Naraha Bhaktya Vimuchye Naraha Bhaktya Vimuchye Naraha. Natharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna and welcome everybody to our session this morning, where we'll be reading from Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 10. We started the chapter yesterday and we'll continue reading texts 3 and texts 4. Let me share the screen. Okay, hopefully you're able to see the screen. If not, just let me know.
Yes, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you. So these are also the same sequence of verses that they don't have a particular meter of recitation. So we just read them like prose. Yes, so this is, sorry, 510, sorry, this is 510.3, yes, 510.3 and 510.4. अथथा ईश्वरवचः सोपलम्बम् उपकर्ण्योपया तुर्यच्छङ्कितमनसस्त्वं विज्ञापयं बभुः. Somebody can read the synonyms?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Atha, thus, they, the carriers of the palanquin, Ishwarovacha, the words of the master, King Rahuguna, Sa Upalambam, with respect, Upakarna, hearing, Upakarna, hearing, Upaya, the means, Turiyat, from the fourth one, Shankita Manasa, whose mind were afraid, Tam, him, the king, Vignapayan, Bubuhu, informed.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Somebody would like to read the translation and purport maybe?
Yes, Prabhu, I can read here. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, text 3. Sorry, Atha, das, te, They.
Mataji, translation. Prabhu's done the synonyms.
Oh, sorry, yeah, translation. When the palanquin carriers heard the threatening words of Maharaja Ruhugana, they became very afraid of his punishment and began to speak to him as follows. Shall I read purport as well?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Prabhu. According to political science, a king sometimes tries to pacify his subordinates, sometimes chastises them, sometimes divides them, and sometimes rewards them. In this way, the king rules his subordinates. The bearers of the palanquin could understand that the king was angry and that he would chastise them. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Go to the next verse as well. न वयं नरदेव प्रमत्ता भवां नियमानोपथः साध्वेव वहमः अयम् अधुनैव नियुक्तोऽपि न द्रुतं व्रजति नानेन सह वोढुम् ऊहा वयं परयाम्यति. Okay. Somebody can read the synonyms. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
No, no,
Yeah, you
Yes,
go,
ma'am.
Prabhuji, please, yeah.
no, not Vayam. We, Naradeva, O Lord among human beings, the king is supposed to be the representative of Deva, the supreme personality of Godhead, Paramatta, Pramatta, neglectful in our duties. Bhavat Niyamo Anupata, one who are always obedient to your orders. Sadhu, properly. Eva, certainly. Vahama, we are carrying. I am this man. Aduna, just recently. Eva, indeed. Niyukta, being engaged to work with us. Api, although. No, not. Drutam, very quickly. Prajati, works. No, not. Anena, him. Saha, with. Bodhum, to carry. Uha, oh. Vayam, we. Parayamaha, arabo. Iti, thus.
Thank you, Prabhu. And Mataji can do the translation and purport.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Oh, the translation. O Lord, please note that we are not at all negligent in discharging our duties. We have been faithfully carrying this palanquin according to your desire. But this man who has been recently engaged to work with us cannot walk very swiftly. Therefore, we are not able to carry the palanquin with him. Purport. The other palanquin carriers were Shudras, whereas Jadabharat was not only a high caste Brahmana but also a great devotee. Shudras do not sympathize with other living beings, but a Vaishnava cannot act like a Shudra. Whenever a Shudra and a Brahmana Vaishnava are combined, there will certainly be imbalance in the execution of duties. The Shudras were working with the palanquin without at all caring for the ants on the ground. But Jadabharat could not act like a Shudra and therefore difficulty arose. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Here. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So to this section, we have come to the third stage of Bharat Maharaj's life. As we have already heard in the previous chapters, how he was the king and with a little bit of a misdirection with his attachment to the deer, he just before he could reach the destination, he had to slip away and get into the body of a deer, his consciousness being diverted towards the deer. And then, of course, after that, he took another birth as Jada Bharat, who was highly qualified, intellectually, highly strong, stout, physically, and fit for anything, doing any activity or any work in this material world very successfully. In spite of having all these abilities we have read in the previous chapters, he chose, although he had all the facilities, he chose not to exhibit them at all. In fact, he went the other way. Although he had all his facilities and he could do work very well, he chose not to do work very well and behave like a fool, like a madman. So this is another aspect for us. Sometimes, when we see somebody, we tend to take them on face value, what they look like, what they talk, how they behave. Of course, they are important and they are very, very interesting aspects to understand a person. It is said, right? When we see somebody for the first time, in the first 7 or 10 seconds, just by the physical appearance, we make an impression. And usually it's very difficult to break that first impression. So we are the way we are structured in this material world, we become attracted or we become influenced by what we see or what we perceive. Sometimes it's not just physically seeing, it's also a perception. So we have to be very careful. Sometimes we may see somebody and we may have some opinion, but unless we go deeper and understand what is the intent behind the person, what is his motive, it's very difficult to understand somebody completely. Likewise, it is mentioned in Nectar of Instruction also, and I'll perhaps take the verse a little bit later, that how it is extremely dangerous to assume somebody on external features only and react with them accordingly. It is also said that it is not just important what we say, it is equally important how we say. Yeah. So our voice, our tone, our body language is equally important as what comes out of the mouth. Similarly, same thing with behavior. It is not what we are doing, it is about how we are doing. It is not about how we are interacting with people only. It is about how we are making them feel. So these very, very subtle aspects are there in human society. But as we go further away from Vedic culture, these things are all going away. So today's verse, or these two verses that we read, where Maharaj Rahuguna, in this particular chapter, was a big king of the two big provinces, Sauvira and what was the other one? Sindhu. So he was just like an ordinary, like a king, big king. He is going in his palki, and while moving, it was, they found that they needed one more strong, able-bodied person. And all as they were going, they found Jada Bharat on the way, and they just like, how sometimes people in India, it is still there. There are people standing on the road for daily jobs, labor jobs. So they just stand on the side of the road near the market. And a person who has to get some labor work done, they just go to the market, just like you are able to buy vegetables by going to different people and bargaining with them. Similarly, there are these humans, labor standing, and you can actually go to them and bargain and say, this is the job, I'm going to give you only so much. If they agree, you just bring them along. If they don't, you move on and shop more to get somebody more cheaper or for the job that you are wanting. So it is like it's a human commodity. So you've got vegetables on one side and you've got human commodity on the other side. And so these people, who are these laborers and people who hire them, they are usually not treated with a lot of respect because it's a very low grade job. They are just given any job that other able-bodied people can't do. Okay, you do it. So they are not very skillful jobs usually. They are mainly low labor jobs, low skill jobs. So they are not given that respect. And they said, hey, chalo, come on, come and just join. So similarly, we find that in this case, Jad Bharat was there, and these people, the servants of the king, they just literally pulled him and forced him to join the service. And what was the service? To carry the palki of the king. And if you think about it, there is nothing too wrong about. I mean, okay, they might have forced him, but they are all doing service to the king, who's Vedically is supposed to represent the Supreme Lord. So there's nothing wrong. So he was carrying the palki, but then something amazing happened, as we were discussing yesterday, and we'll discuss a bit more today as well. That Jad Bharat, as he was walking, externally he appeared very like a fool, and as if he has no care for the world around him. But internally, he did not lose the qualities of a devotee. And what was the most important quality that Jad Bharat had? Most important quality of a devotee, the foundation quality. If that quality is not there, then there is no way we can progress towards Krishna. Anybody?
Tolerance.
Tolerance.
Sorry?
Tolerance.
Tolerance.
Non-violence.
Yes, one more.
Humility.
Humble. Humility.
Humility. Yes.
Compassion.
Compassion. Thank you. Who said
Compassion.
that? Who said compassion? Sorry, I couldn't see you.
To myself.
Oh, Hare Krishna. Nandar Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Compassion. All the other answers are also right, but compassion is the foundational document. Why? Because that is the foundational quality which links one living entity to the other, and which enables one living entity to see the other entity as a part and parcel of Krishna. Only when we see that, or we perceive that person to be part and parcel of Krishna, can we have compassion. Compassion cannot be, he's poor, he's suffering, then I show compassion. No. Even a person getting out from a very, very expensive car, he's also poor. How? He is not poor in terms of money, but he's poor in terms of spiritual knowledge. He's poor in terms of understanding the goal of life. So a devotee who's a serious, sincere devotee does not see anybody externally. He sees everybody as a part and parcel, and sees that everybody is in need of help for achieving the goal of life. And that is how the natural compassion flows. So Jad Bharat, when he was Maharaj Bharat, he had compassion, right? Of course. We all discussed so much about compassion last few months. And because of this having compassion was not bad, but that compassion unfortunately took him to attachment. And that attachment deviated him from his goal. So this became a problem. So compassion was not bad, but what compassion manifested into naturally, and he being unable to control or review or rectify himself, was the cause of again going through these lifetimes. So the compassion was there. Even in this life, he had compassion. So compassion did not go away. And how was his compassion shown? by when he was walking, he could see the ants. And naturally, he didn't want to step on them. It is said that we cannot kill any living entity and stop their natural progression. So he was very mindful. He was looking at that. So compassion was always there. He did not lose it. But this time it was properly directed. So he did not look at the ants and think, okay, well, can I just lift the ant and keep it with me or take it with me with the palki? No. Unlike the deer. So he just let the ants move. But while he was waiting for the ants to move, he had to stop. And imagine carrying a palki and other people are walking and it's quite heavy. I don't know if some of you have definitely seen palki. Prabhu was mentioning yesterday, Bacharan Prabhu. And some people might have seen in the villages in their early childhood, or the parents might have talked about it. We did see a palki not being carried physically, but in a museum. And we know how heavy it is. And we know that you really need to have good, able-bodied people. And you can't just walk slowly. Even if you have seen movies, but if you are carrying a palki, you can't just walk slowly, tiptoe, no. They run, they're not running, but they're walking very, very briskly. And it's so heavy and they have to walk, they become very fatigued. So they normally say something, hun huna, something like that, you'll see. There's songs made also on palki bearers, especially in Bengal. So while other bearers were briskly walking and trying to ensure that the king does not feel any discomfort, you can imagine, even if somebody is walking very, very in sync and the palki is being carried, because they are walking, right? So there's naturally the palki is being jerked little bit. So it is the duty of the bearers of the palki to ensure that the way they walk, it's synchronized. Just like you've got these rowing competitions. So in the boat, there are so many people with the oars, but they have to be perfectly coordinated. So when somebody is putting the row down, everybody has to put it down. So imagine somebody putting down, somebody putting up, like we go for kayaking, and somebody is doing this and somebody is doing that, and the boat never goes anywhere. It just stays where it is. So like that, it has to be synchronized. So this palki bearers, they have to not only walk briskly, they have to synchronize amongst themselves. Why? First, they should not get fatigued. Second, most importantly, the master who is in the palki should not feel disturbed or too much of a jerks. So those are the primary qualities of the palki bearers. Now, in that context, imagine while they are carrying the palki, Jada Bharat sees ants and he stops. And imagine what's going to happen to the palki, like a big brake. Sometimes in the car, when something suddenly comes in front of us or some car just, squeezes past, we have to, jerk on the brake. And then what happens? We get a big jerk like this. So that was happening. So it happened once. Obviously, Rahuguna didn't like it. Happened again. And then he's saying, because he didn't know, he's inside the palki. He doesn't know who's doing what outside, but he can feel the jerk. So he was shouting and he's saying that, you better carry it properly. And he was getting irritated and angry. And in response to that, this verse, it is said that the palki hearers, they could hear the threatening words of Maharaj Rahuguna. Although Maharaj didn't kind of threaten them directly, he was getting angry. And obviously, when the king is angry, next, if that anger is not taken care of, it will obviously result into some form of a threat or punishment. So they heard the threatening words of Rahuguna, and what happened? Obviously, if the king is angry, especially at the servant for not doing their service efficiently, they knew that they are going to get punished. And here in the purport, Prabhupada writes that the king has to use to control his subjects And to rule properly, he has to use 4 things. Now, in Hindi, it is said, Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed. So Prabhupada says sometimes he will pacify, sometimes he will chastise, sometimes he will punish them, and sometimes he will reward them. So these are standard processes that are used. And in the next verse, it is so Maharaj Ranuguna was angry. The palki bearers, they were afraid. And in text 4, they had to defend themselves. So all of the palki bearers are carrying that, and because of one person, all of them are getting chastised. So the people who were carrying it properly, obviously they felt that I'm doing my job properly, but why am I being chastised? Or why am I being chastised with other people who are actually not doing the job properly? So sometimes it happens, right? When we are working in a group, like a team, and somehow or the other, because of one team member who either is not doing the work properly or is not sincere, is lazy, and is not fulfilling deadlines, when the team leader wants the project completed and finds that the project is nowhere close to completion and the dates are approaching, obviously the whole team gets a bad name. He's going to chastise the whole team, and then of course review happens, and then they get to know where's the problem, what's the bottleneck, and it's sorted. So here, obviously, the king had this problem. So he's just getting angry. So the other palki bearers, they thought that if they don't clarify the situation, then everybody will get punished. So naturally, why should the person doing a job properly be punished for somebody else's fault? So they wanted to ensure that they clarify this stand with the king before he becomes more angry and tells them that everybody will be punished. Yeah. So here, what do they say? They say, "Oh Lord, please note that we are not at all negligent." So Rahuguna told them, right, what's happening? You better carry it properly. So they are saying, we are not negligent in what? In discharging our duties. We have been faithfully carrying this palki, engaged to work with us. We've been carrying this palki according to your desire. But this man who has been recently engaged to work with us cannot walk very swiftly. So it is not us. We are doing our job properly. But this fellow who you just picked up on the way, he's not doing properly. Somebody is unmuted. Can you please mute yourself? Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, you have been muted, sorry.
Oh, that's fine. I'm unmuted. I just noticed it. Yeah. So they are clarifying their stand and saying it's not us, it is this guy. Now, this also happens typically around all of us. So what has happened in terms of the king carrying the palki, Jada Bharat being engaged, and then the palki not moving properly? There was nothing wrong in all these things. It's just normal. The king was a good king. He was not unnecessarily being angry until he was disturbed. And the people also were serving him properly. So there was nothing wrong. Everything was working quite well. But it is because of Jada Bharat's devotee qualities, especially compassion, that he could not overlook his compassion just to do the service of carrying the palki for his king. So this became a bit of a problem or a challenge in his doing his service. But he was unaffected. So we see here that these people are saying that they are not pramatha, they are not neglectful in their duty, the word he has used here. And they also say that there are two things that they say. One is pramatha, second is bhavat niyama anupathaha. That we are not negligent, at the same time we are obedient. So that the king does not have any misconception towards their service. So if we see, all these things were going on and Jada Bharat was oblivious. On one hand, he was doing his duty, carrying the palki, but his consciousness was so focused. So externally, he was callous of external things. So much callous that in the previous chapter, we saw how he was taken by a group of dacoits, captured and taken away to be physically killed, like sacrificed for Kali. And Bhagavatam says that Jada Bharat was so physically powerful, strong, that if he wanted, he could have defeated all these dacoits and he could have freed himself. But he chose not to. He did not retaliate. He did not even say anything. He did not even argue that, hey, you're getting the wrong man. You know, what would we do in his position? Hey, no, it's not me, not me. You catch him, somebody else. No. So he did that. So externally, he was callous. He didn't care what it is. But internally, he was very focused. Because in this previous birth, or previous to previous birth, as Bharat Maharaj, he was becoming more focused on externals and he was forgetting his internals, his internal focus. So he was very alert. So when somebody commits a mistake in their progress of devotional service, they become very alert. So similarly, if we feel that, okay, there are some mistakes that we have committed in our spiritual journey, or we have deviated in some form or the other, and we will be extremely fortunate if we have somebody in our lives who can correct us. So when we receive corrections from a devotee, doesn't matter, it's junior, senior, same level, doesn't matter. If we receive any corrections, even criticism, that is actually our biggest wealth. And when we receive that, there are two things that are very important, which Jada Bharat did. What are the two things? Jada Bharat had did two things. One is he was remorseful. Remorseful that, oh my God, it has happened. Like repentant. But sometimes we also become remorseful and repentant. And we might do this. But the second point is even more important. And sometimes not because we don't want to do, but because that needs a lot of effort, we miss it or we don't do it properly. And that becomes a problem. So first is remorseful, being remorseful. Second is rectification, active action to rectify. So we have to have a plan of action to rectify the problem or the deviation. And that is exactly what Jada Bharat did. As soon as he got this deer body, he was remorseful. He remembered everything. And that's why as a deer also, what did he do? Anybody remembers as a deer, he purposely did something.
He is around the Pulha ashram.
Yes. See, as a deer, he could have gone anywhere. The whole forest, he can go anywhere. But what did he choose? Why? Because he remembered. And he was remorseful. He was repentant that, see, I was almost there. And because of this slight issue, problem. So he was repentant. Then, after he was repentant, he did something very important. Is now I will rectify. What is the rectification? Rectification plan of action is internal focus on bhakti, on Krishna, and externally becoming callous. You would think I'm mad, I'm mad. You think I'm full, I'm full. No problem. That way, I'm not affected. Right? We also hear on a similar line, like how Jada Bharat, he chose not to exhibit his natural qualities. Why? So that he doesn't get entangled again. Just like Bharat Maharaj, he was exhibiting his natural quality of compassion as a devotee, and he got entangled. So this time he chose not to interact at all with the external world. and completely withdraw himself. So there is no, he didn't leave any chances, no risk, minimal risk. Right. So we have a similar story. Obviously, many of you or all of you will know of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. That how he used to, obviously, he was in Vrindavan for a long time, and then towards the end, he had this desire to come to Navadip. So when he came to Navadip, he was a Babaji and very, very renounced person. And it is mentioned, you might not even believe this actually, it is mentioned that he used to drink water from discarded broken clay pots, which is like uchishta, somebody's we should never eat. He used to drink water from there, and he used to get some rice that is left over. He used to just eat whatever he could get, remnants of people that have rejected things. He used to eat from there. And even clothes, what people have rejected, the clothes, and they have thrown, those clothes he will take and wear if only required. No additional, okay, what will happen after 1 month, 2 months, next year, what will I wear? No, that's it. So he was so renounced that people slowly got to know his glories, his dedication, sincerity as a devotee, and they wanted to meet him, take his blessings. So they used to start coming to him throughout the days and talk to him and take his blessings. And he was not interested in all that. He said, I just want to do my bhajan. I just want to chant the holy name of the Lord. Guess how many rounds he used to chant? Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Anybody? Rounds. Not as much as Haridas Thakur. He used to chant 128 rounds every day. So imagine when people are coming to see him, it is disturbing in his bhajan, in his chanting. So he thought of one good idea. He said, there is a guest house which has a public toilet. So he used to go inside the public toilet and just be there. So that people, and obviously you can imagine public toilets, especially in that part, even now you see the hygiene is very bad, it's not clean. So there's, first of all, it's very unclean. Secondly, it's very stink, it just stinks. So he used to sit there and do his bhajan. Why? So that people, because of the stink, they will not even think of going close to that place, and they'll definitely, nobody will imagine that such a nice devotee will be in such a filthy place. So that way, even though he is in Navadip, he will not be disturbed. So internal focus, external callousness. Whatever, jo mila, whatever I get is okay. If I don't get, that is also okay. So they are so renounced. And sometimes, we feel we are renounced. But sometimes when we go to the temple, do service, especially serving, cleaning, or any other service, if we somehow or the other don't get all the items of the prasad, especially it's a festival, then what happens to us? Our renunciation, where does it go? Right? We feel very bad. How come? I did not get. I did so much service today on the festival day, but I only didn't get. Krishna, what are you doing? So this is we say we are renounced, but are we really renounced? These are the things to show. So these lives of such great devotees, they are like mirrors for us. Of course, we cannot imitate them. We cannot achieve a similar level of renunciation. That very high perhaps, but we need to know what is that level. And more importantly than the level is their mood. What is their intent? What is their motive? That is very, very important. So Jad Bharat, he was remorseful, then he rectified himself. How? Internal focus, external callousness. And then I want to talk about 5 such qualities which are in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna mentions 5. There are a lot of qualities actually, 26 qualities. But I just wanted to highlight 5 qualities that we can actually see in Jada Bharat, especially in lieu of his current pastimes that he's performing. And it gives us a bit of an insight that it is not just the compassion, but these qualities that are built into him. He's so conscious of Krishna that these qualities are naturally exhibited. We don't need to specifically exhibit this quality. It's naturally there. So one quality that is very important, or that he expressed in the previous chapter especially, is abhayam. The first divine quality that Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16. So he says abhayam. Abhayam is fearless. He had no fear at all whatsoever. Even though he could subdue his enemies, he chose not to. And he was completely fearless. So as a devotee, in that purport, Prabhupada writes that feeling of fearlessness proves that we are dependent on Krishna. So this is very important. So even when the dacoits took him and they were about to sacrifice him, he had no inkling of fear. Just like how Prahlad Maharaj, when he was taken through all of these tribulations, given poison and put in front of the elephant, thrown from the mountain, was Prahlad Maharaj fearful? No, he had not even 1% of fear, completely fearless. So Jada Bharat exhibits that. Second, tapaha, austerity. To become callous of the spirit of this material world, we have to have austerity. In fact, it's an austerity to conform to the ways of this material world, is it not? For us, conforming or even going along with the ways of this world itself is an austerity. Yeah. Our food habits, our lifestyle, our thinking, our speaking, everything becomes an austerity if we have to be together with people of this material world. So tapaha or austerity is a natural byproduct to make spiritual progress. And in case of Jada Bharat, obviously, he didn't mind taking that austerity. Taking a palki is not a very comfortable job. It's very, very austere. But he did not mind that at all. Third quality is daya or mercy, compassion, like we were mentioning. So he did not, although he had compassion against deer and that compassion kind of pulled him down, he did not give that quality. He exhibited that in this instance on the ants as well. So his compassion or daya bhav was consistent. Fourth, kshama, forgiveness. Of course, we've got a lot of discussions on forgiveness and a lot of instances of forgiveness in Bhagavatam. In this instance, Jada Bharat, how did he exhibit his forgiveness? By forgiving the dacoits who were about to kill him. The Vedas say that a person who is about to kill you, you can defend yourself. And you can also kill that person out of self-defense if he is causing harm to you, and especially if he's wanting to kill you. Killing such a person is not a crime. So if Jada Bharat would have killed the dacoits, it would not have been a sin, but he chose not to. Not only that, after all that thing happened and the goddess killed all of these dacoits, he forgave them. And he just left the place as if nothing happened, like it's like waking up from a dream and just going along with life. So he forgave them. And the last point is, or one of the qualities that I wanted to highlight is Gyan, knowledge. Externally, he appeared like a fool. He doesn't know anything. But now we will see, as in this chapter, just after a few verses, we'll see when a fool who is considered a fool by others, he's not a fool, but he's considered a fool by others. When such a person opens their mouth, so much nectar starts flowing. so much transcendental knowledge starts flowing. So much so that Maharaj Rahuguna, just by hearing a few words of philosophy from him, had to come down from his palki and become like a disciple and accept this knowledge. So from text 9 to the end of this chapter, Jad Bharat will speak and give Rahuguna the transcendental knowledge. So these are very, very significant, that a person externally appears like a fool, but internally he exhibits so many qualities. And so we also, when we interact with different types of people, different types of devotees, we have to be very mindful. Like I was saying, the nectar of instruction, it says in text 6, Drishtai Swabhava Janitai Vapuchascha Toshair Na Prakritatvam Iha Bhakta Janasya Pashet Gangam Bhasam Na Khalu Budbudapena Pankair Brahma Dravatvam Apagachati Niradharmahi. So what does it say? Drishtai Swabhava Janitair Vapushascha Doshair. Vapu means the body, and dosh. So we should not externally look at the deformities or the body or just the faults of the opposite person, especially when it happens to be a devotee. So we should not be influenced by their externals. We should be more concerned with what they speak, with their transcendental knowledge. And we should understand that even though they may be having some physical limitations, whether it's a deformity, whether it's a looks, whether it's their speech, whether it's the way they do things, even though they have so-called non-standard ways of interacting with the world, we have to understand they are just like the Ganga water. Gangam bhasam nakhalu budbuda phena pankair. So just like there are foam and bubbles and some pollutants that come into Ganga over a period of time, but Ganga river by itself can never become polluted, because Ganga comes from the feet of the Lord. Touching the feet of the Lord, Ganga has come into this material world. So externally it may seem dirty, but spiritually it is still as potent as it is when Ganga appeared originally. So even now in Vrindavan, we see, although Yamuna is in such a bad shape, we were discussing in Bhakti Shastri class in Nectar of Instruction, that in Vrindavan, even now, there are so many devotees who do not see what is floating on the top of the Yamuna. And it happened once in front of us. There's so many things. You wouldn't even dare even dip your finger and put it on the head. It is so, I don't want to use the word. But this person wore a gamcha, didn't see anything around, just went straight in, took a dip, came out, and moved and went away. Why? There's so much spiritual attachment to this. So similarly, a devotee has to be looked at from that transcendental vision. And it is said that we are only as good as our externals and our internals. They have to combine together. Sometimes our external is different, internal is different, but they has to be consistent. But sometimes to deal with this material world, we should not be duplicitous, but sometimes we have to ensure that so that we don't get disturbed, internally we stay focused and externally we become callous. So just to preempt, there are so many wonderful aspects that are going to come up in future. I just thought I'll talk about two important things before I summarize. One is that Maharaj Rahuguna, was he wrong in correcting the palki bearers? No, he was not wrong. He was getting disturbed and agitated because it's not being done properly. So he was trying to correct them. And when they didn't correct, he became angry. In anger, he became sarcastic first, and then he physically threatened with punishment, Jad Bharat. And then Jad Bharat, from text 9, he actually, when somebody threatens us, what happens? We get angry. Jada Bharat, how did he respond before he started speaking? It's very interesting. I would urge you to read. I'll not say, the future speakers will talk about it. But after Rahuguna finished chastising and threatening Jada Bharat, what did he do? What was his reaction before he started speaking? This is homework for you. That is the first point. Second point is the way Jada Bharat put things forward to him. It is something very instructional for us to understand how to deal with people around us in a way that we are able to express ourselves without diluting the philosophy. At the same time, we are able to connect to them at their level. So this is very important. And the basic takeaway from today's thing is two things. If you have forgotten everything that we discussed today, just two things I would urge you to take away. First, as we progress in our spiritual journey, taking a clue from Jada Bharat, we have to constantly review ourselves or have some mentors, guides, review our own spiritual journey or progress with us and do two things. In that review, there are two things that's important. First is we have to understand what I need to rectify. Sorry, what I have done wrong, remorseful. And second is rectification. If we understand that this is where I want to improve or I need to improve, then we'll have a plan of action, which is our rectification plan. And essentially, it doesn't matter what plan it is. The overlying or underlying philosophy of the rectification plan is just like what Jada Bharat did and what we are also doing, maybe subconsciously, little bit, not like him, but little bit. And what is that? Internal focus, external callousness. Jada Bharat ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much. I now open up for any discussions, questions, and summaries.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandot Pranam.
Krishna.
What a nice clarification of text 3 and 4. The whole Bhagavatam is read out to explain the behavior of a devotee. The most important thing, how we focus ourselves, to focus internally rather than externally. And that is the gist of this text, and how to become ourselves more refined by understanding the process of remorsing and rectification. That is what should be our focus in our spiritual advancement. And this example of Jaravaran shows that how to do it and how should behave in our regular practice so that our spiritual advancement doesn't get disturbed. And if we fall away from the path of advancement, then the point where we need to discuss with our spiritual master, senior devotees, to get better guidance for our advancement in a regular basis, so that we just align with the advancement path rather than deviate from it. That is what the gist of this text, two texts. Thank you so much for explaining. And the other thing, as you mentioned about the qualities of a great devotee, which is just like water of Ganga. We don't see the external features or bodily infirmities. We see what it is inside. That is focusing inside and what should I say? And don't think about the external features. That is what the text taking away from us. And that is the takeaway for today's text 3 and 4. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Yeah, any other comments? Questions?
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
No.
Such a wonderful analysis of this verse with so many takeaway points. You mentioned some of the qualities of Bharat Maharaj. I think there are so many qualities. If you look at the verse from Bhagavad Gita 13.8, I think, Aman with Ahimsa Stani Javadam. I mean, he exhibited all these qualities. I mean, so if you want to have what you call somebody who we can look up, we can study Bharat Maharaj, Jet Bharat Maharaj lifestyle, and we can see all these qualities he exhibited in person. He demonstrated all this. So it's a very nice takeaway to see how even and against so many difficult times, Bharat Maharaj maintained his composure, not getting angry, tolerating all the sarcastic remarks by the king, in spite of being so advanced. One of the things that really struck me in the previous verse is that in spite of his knowing that he had some misdirection, he identified the deer and he got a body of a deer, but he was not blaming anybody. You know, he took full responsibility account that this was my mistake. And now, as you mentioned, he did the review and then did the rectification. This is very important. If you have some reverses in life, we should not blame somebody else. We should look at our own self, do a review, and rectify and do an action plan and get on with it. I mean, rather than just mentioning about what happened previously, trying to blame somebody. So many nice lessons to learn from this. And thank you so much for bringing out this very important point. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So nice. Yeah, it's perfect. Taking responsibility. And only when you take responsibility, you can actually feel remorse. Otherwise, if you blame it on somebody else, you think it's not my fault, it's his fault. Because of him, I fell down. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, anybody else?
Still got few more time. Anybody want to share their realization, reflections? Please feel free to come forward.
No, all good.
Okay, all good. No one.
Yeah, hopefully it's something to take home and write. It might have been a bit heavy, but I thought it's good to discuss these things.
Thank you. Okay, Vancha Kalpatarubhaish.
Druvascha kripa sindhuvaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. His Grace Suhrit Krishna Prabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much, Prabhu.